It's Thursday, April 22nd. This is The Street Live. I'm Katherine Ross, and I am joined, as always, by Jim Cramer. Jim, let's kick it off with the markets. We've got the Dow and the S&P lower, but the NASDAQ pushing higher.
Yeah, I think that this market is sending false signals. I mean, when you have great unemployment numbers, when you have every single quarter that's come out, other than Union Pacific, discussed that on the Action Alerts conference call, showing stronger numbers, and yet you have interest rates down. Well, look, the market may think it's right, but the market can be wrong. And this is the kind of situation where you shouldn't be getting the opportunities that you're getting. And I think you got to take them.
Jim, there are a slew of stocks that I want to talk about today, but I want to kick it off with two interviews that you did on CNBC earlier today, because one of your focuses is Earth Day. And you sat down with Dow CEO Jim Fitterling following their earnings, and you talked about sustainability and how important it is for companies to reduce their emissions and carbon footprint. So I want to bring that conversation here. Why is this so key?
Well, first, if I can just say, these are unusual questions for us to ask. Southwest reports, and typically we talk about how seat miles, we talk about new routes, talk about planes, talk about fuel costs. That's no longer enough. Gary's a thought leader in how to get emissions down. He made it very clear that without the government's help, it can't be done, because frankly, the companies are all competitive and they all want to keep costs down. They all want to reward shareholders. But if the government were involved, then there would be an opportunity to talk about carbon and what they can do to reduce carbon. Same thing with Dow. I mean, Jim Fitterling is doing everything he can, but the industry historically has not been able to get people to recycle the way they should. So they need government help. Now, it's not a cop-out. They genuinely do need government help. Remember, we just went through 4 years where the government didn't even believe that there were climate problems. So that regime is gone. And I think that those of us who believe that we're stewards of the earth have to ask these questions of a company like Dow Chemical. I mean, you get my daughter watching me, and I think a lot of us are like this who have kids. And you get your daughter watching me, and she says, if you just ask nothing about except for cash flow and EBITDA, you're shameful. And my daughter's right. I had for too long, not unlike when I was at Goldman Sachs, not focused on this, focused on profit. And that's no longer enough. And Jim Fitterling knows that, and I know that. But if we have to hold Fitterling's feet to the fire, he has to hold his company to the fire, and we have to hold our conscience to the fire. And I think that both Jim and Gary are trying to do the right thing and they certainly have this top of mind. It's no longer something they're doing for show. I watched this morning a excellent interview. It was an interview on Salesforce's channel about what Salesforce is doing to help minority business people in LA. It is what they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about business. I like that. If I were to reinvent business news, I would insist that every day we would have an hour on this in order to push the agenda. And I think that when you get a Gary or you get a Jim on, they would be thrilled to come in. They're pushing the agenda, Katherine, and we all have to do it, not just Earth Day, every day.
Well, and what Gary said about government and also just the world coming together to knock down the amount of emissions and carbon footprint that we all leave is really important. And I was actually listening to NPR's Up First podcast this morning. There was a segment that they did on Biden's plan to reduce emissions, which is a huge overhaul that we're expected to hear later today from the president himself. But Jim, I mean, that's so key that the government needs to come in, needs to help out these companies, and not just in a fiscal way, but just aiming to help companies understand how large their footprints are and how to reduce them in the future.
Right. I mean, I want companies to be able to get credits. Let's say you can't reduce. Well, wait a second. Why don't you go plant trees? Why don't you offset carbon offsets? The government has to think about this and present these, though, because the government has to be the partner of business. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who would say business is profligate. They return a lot of money to shareholders. They're not thinking about this. That's going to be the case. We're not going to make it so these companies are working for the environment. That's just not going to happen. But we're going to have to agitate for the government and the companies to do what's right, even at the expense of the shareholders, because we are stewards And when you get a person like me who is largely regarded as a dollar sign represented by a man, and I feel this, others better feel it too.
So let's talk about the airlines, based on your interview with Southwest CEO Gary Kelly, but also the earnings that we've seen so far this week. Do you think, after sitting down with CEOs, do you think that this sector is really going to see a rebound in travel? What are your thoughts on the sector overall? Do you like Love enough to buy?
Yes, I do. I think that Southwest is a great growth story. I think when you see their yield is down, that's because they're trying to take share. They bought a lot of planes and they need all the planes. Gary Kelly is, as I mentioned earlier, a thought leader. What Gary Kelly's doing is saying, listen, our last month was very good, and the next month is going to be very good, and we're going to get a very strong vacation market that's pent up. American Parker talked about the idea that there's going to be a return of the business traveler. United was kind of unfortunate, not that good, but Ed Bastian it shared my vision when I spoke with him that we could have a roaring 20s environment. So I like this group very much, and I like what Gary's doing with his expansion during this period. I would still, and I've been recommending Southwest ever since the crisis began, I would still buy the stock of Southwest.
So another stock that you like quite a bit, which also reported earnings, is Chipotle. It was also your mad dash. I mean, its digital sales doubled, Jim.
Yeah, so now Chipotle is another stock that people get wrong. All right, they feel it's moved too much, but it's really only up 8% this year. Brian Nickel, 21 million loyalty. They had no loyalty plan 2 years ago. What does that say about this brand? When you are in a situation, and I said some of this on TV, when you're in a situation where you can literally say, listen, cauliflower rice, quesadillas, carne asada, they're moving the needle, and your biggest problem is price of avocado, not even a minimum wage, which would hit them for very little. When they can put through any price increase, they seem to be able to do. And remember, there's a lot of companies that cannot put price increases through because, frankly, they don't have a product that's loved enough. I say that Chipotle is all systems go. Average unit volume, they can do maybe 3 million. They talk about 2.5 being the average. Brian Nickel and Jack Hartung, what a pair, operations and finance. So, yes, the stock is down. It's locked at 1,500 for now. I think it's just a matter of time before people say, you know what? It is best in show, 17% comp store growth, tremendous orientation toward natural and fresh. The other day, I was looking at my mention following, and someone attacked me. It's getting tiresome, frankly, because I said that if you like that, one of the reasons why Beyond Meat could succeed is it's not GMO. And, so a person immediately gets in and says, look, Jim, everything's GMO, so what do you care? And that's not the attitude at all of this country. The attitude is it wants fresh, it wants natural, it doesn't want GMO, because younger people are coming in. And I think sometimes people just go into a mentions column to say things that are mean, or that are thoughtless and mean, or that are provocative but mean. And the idea that fresh and natural doesn't have a place, that's why Chipotle is good, because it's fresh and natural. And that's why that stock's not done. So
you think around it's trading at $1,500 right now as of this moment at 10:42 a.m. Buy?
Yes, absolutely. I would definitely buy it. I buy some right here. And I think it's just a very strong story. I like the conference call very much. There are a lot of critics of this because it's run so much. But again, I say only up 8% for the year. When your biggest worry is the cost of avocado, and that's been the case for a long time, then I'm a buyer. And now, I was at we're opening Bar San Miguel soon, and I was talking to my partner, Petru, last night. And what is really, really interesting, I think, is, and I wish these guys would do it, is the explosion of Mexican beer. Now, they're not involved with that, but I do think that it is just an unbelievable opportunity. And I'm going to press them. I'm going to press them next time I see them, because they went with my Topo Chico, which is their fizzy water, and now they got to go with what I'm talking about when it comes to alcohol. They have to have it, because I see the combination of alcohol and Mexican food is so powerful that I wish they could somehow get this done. I can't wait till our bar opens. So much fun last night just talking about it.
And Jim, I gotta say, I've tried Topo Chico's hard seltzer. It's very good. I would say it's probably better than White Claw to me personally. So
Yes.
definitely worth it.
And Topo Chico's hard seltzer has been out for 2 weeks in Texas, and it's already taken 20% share. Not enough to move.
It's hard to find.
It's very, very hard to find. Very hard to find. By the way, apparently the president is just they've abandoned an effort to curb the drug pricing. So you got a great chance to buy Eli Lilly down $1.25. I would take that advantage of that. That's just breaking.
Jim, I want to bring up your Real Money column from Wednesday afternoon because it continues the conversation that we started yesterday about FAANG. You push back against the idea that FAANG is dead, and I do agree with you, but I'm wondering if at this point this kind of play is exhausted and other investors are eyeing other names.
Well, look, I really think I wrote that piece from the heart because I saw so many shows yesterday that talked about how FAANG was dead because so many of the members are not doing well. Google is the only one that people want to talk about. That's up 30. Tony Sacconaghi this morning from Bernstein came out with another piece about Apple saying, look, I don't think anything can move the needle. He said that at 119, it's at 133. The needle moved. So, I mean, give me a break, but it's only up 0.9%. I'm saying rather than say, you know what, FAANG's dead, how about what an opportunity you got with FAANG? These companies reinvent themselves. Facebook is up 10%. That's not bad. I'll take 10% in an environment where it's a cyclical rally every day. And David Kostin's starting to talk. Goldman, the great Goldman analyst, is starting to talk about how maybe you should swap out of the industrials back into the tech companies that have secular growth. Well, how about Amazon secular growth? It's only up 3%. I think it's going to have amazing comparisons. So rather than think that it's dead, I say take a look at it and maybe buy one. And that's a very different and oppositional statement versus what I read in my mentions column and what I hear on TV. My mentions column, unfortunately, is filled with penny stocks now, and I really don't know what to do about it because I'm not going to recommend a penny stock, and I'm not going to recommend some SPAC that is not going to make it. I'd rather recommend Amazon. Amazon being up 3% for the year. I'd rather recommend Microsoft. Microsoft is up 17%. It's an all-time high today, but it's got accelerated revenue growth from Azure. So I see real growth in FAANG plus M, which is what a lot of people view it. And I'd rather be in those right now than I would be in Dow Chemical, as much as I like Dow, where I interviewed Jim Fitterly this morning. He's a terrific guy. But a lot of people feel that industrials have peaked, and the secular growers aren't peaking at all.
Jim, I want to wrap up this show by talking about the semiconductor shortage, and I want to do that in two ways. One, I want to start with Ford, since it is part of your portfolio on Action Alerts Plus, and we will be talking about Ford more over there. But I want to ask you if Ford putting more downtime at its U.S. plants due to this chip shortage, is it a concern to you?
Absolutely, because if you go and listen to Lamb, which I wrote about this morning, what you hear is, look, we're building plants, we're doing our best, but there's an undercurrent of two things. One is the Chinese have taken so many chips that they double ordered chips, clearly. And the second thing is these companies don't want to get caught making huge amount of capacity when things cool. And I think that Lamb is not taking that view. Lamb is taking that the digitization is just going to continue and continue and continue. So they got to put up a lot of plants. But when you have this kind of game of chicken where you have some of these semiconductor equipment companies basically saying, look, if we all build, then the shortage ends and we get killed, versus other companies like Lamb, which just says, look, it's not going to end. We got to make as many as we can. I think Lamb approaching it in a secular growth way, Katherine, is the way to do it.
And you actually just penned a Real Money column that will be up momentarily on realmoney.com about that. And Jim, I'm going to push back a little bit. Why? Why is Lamb the stock?
I think that Lamb is integral. They do etching. They're integral to the food chain. They do logic. They do flash, memory, and they're frankly, I think, of the Applied Materials, dominant company in terms of just having to you can't make chips without them, basically. I mean, they're that good. And a semiconductor equipment company is, we don't have enough semiconductor equipment. And that's why we have a shortage. It's not that we have too much demand. It's that the companies that should have been meeting the supply were either caught off guard or frankly were going flat out and it didn't matter. And I think Lam was not caught off guard. It's been going flat out, and that's why the rates can continue to be good.
All right, we'll end on that note. Jim, as always, thank you for joining us today. And guys, thank you for tuning in. We are now heading over to our Action Alerts Plus Daily Rundown show, where we will be talking about Ford, Union Pacific earnings. These are key to this market today. So come join us over there on actionalertsplus.com. I'm Katherine Ross, and we'll see you tomorrow.